Okay, welcome to Honest Thoughts and Coffee. I'm Dayna Horton, your host, and I just thank you so much for being here with me. I'm truly grateful for any time that you spend listening to me or watching my content, and I just am super grateful for that. And I hope that this time serves you in some way and helps you move forward with some hope and a strategy, maybe just some clarity and encouragement for your day-to-day life. This podcast is Honest Thoughts and Coffee. So today I am sitting here on a hot June day with my iced coffee and my notebook, and I am ready to go. What I want to do, because it's the end of June and July 1st is just around the corner, which is the beginning of quarter 3. So whether you're in business or you just like to track things or you like strategy, things like that, this is the beginning of the third quarter. And so I thought it would be a good time just to walk you through the process that I use personally, and I have finally given it a name, and I am very hopeful that at some point over the next year I can actually turn this into a more in-depth course or maybe a workbook. But for now, let's just start walking through the steps. What I like to call this process that I do quarterly for sure, sometimes even daily, and you'll see as we go through it that you could even just do this like in a few moments if you close your eyes and just quickly walk yourself through it if you need that to help get regrouped, refocused, recentered, and move forward with a little bit more clarity and hope and peace in your heart. And I like to call this system compass, honor, and vision. And so essentially you could look at this system, like I said, big picture or even just day to day, but overall it really helps me get regrounded. And it's funny because now that I'm a big journaler, I have been journaling since I was little, and I have so many of my journals still, which are very special to me. But looking back through them, I can see that when I don't do this system intentionally, when I don't walk myself through these steps, something always ends up happening that almost makes me stop and do this. So whether that's a moment of like just overwhelm or stress, or maybe I even get sick and everything just kind of stops in its tracks, and I often come back to this system and I'm like, wow, if I would have just done this, even put it into my calendar to sit down and do it, then I might have prevented that moment of overwhelm. So just like my morning routine, this system really has become a regular part of my life, and it's been so helpful, which is why I want to share it with you. So the first step is called compass. And this is where we really just take stock of where we are at. That is our compass position. And you can get as detailed as you want. So grab a notebook, grab a piece of paper, a journal, but you want to stay, it's up to you if you want to be super general or super detailed and how long you want to spend on this. But essentially, it's basically like you are taking not a step back in time, but if you could pick yourself up and zoom out and look at yourself and your life and where you're at, just jotting down who you are and where you're at. And so an example for me, if I was asking myself, who are you? My answers would be, I am a wife, I'm a daughter, I'm a friend, I am a mom, I'm a coworker, I'm a teacher, I substitute at a daycare, I'm an admin at the daycare as well. So those are just some examples of who I am. And if you want to, if health is one of your goals that you are trying to work on in your life, sometimes I'll even write down here's how much I weigh, or here's where, a certain stat might be that I'm trying to improve on. And so I like to just keep track of that data. Now, one thing I want to point out is when you're writing these things down, we're not really assigning value to these things. We're just tracking data here. Most of this is just tracking data so that we can zoom out and get a better picture of where we're at and how things are going. So, we're just putting down the facts. Yes, I'm a wife. Yes, I'm a daughter. Yes, I'm a sister. Yes, I'm a friend. I'm a coworker. That's just part of my life and who I am in a sense. Now, obviously, we can go much deeper into identity and all of those things, but I'm just getting some data on paper here. And that's really it. That's my compass. Where am I right now? I'm 46. Right now, I have 2 teenage daughters that are 18 and 14, and one of them just graduated high school. Right now, I'm Zach's wife, and we've been married for 19 years. Right now, I work full-time as a daycare sub and admin. And I'm also working on this business of podcasting and my monthly newsletter and things like that. So it's a good way to just kind of get your foot, put a pin in where am I on the map right now. The second step in the compass, honor, vision process, and again, in this podcast episode, I'm just kind of giving you a quick method that you can use in hopes to turn it into a more long-form course down the road. But the second step, I think, in this process really is the most difficult. And this is where I want to say to you, please remember, we are just tracking down data here. We are not necessarily going there, if that makes sense. The second step, and I think it will make more sense when I talk about it, is the honor portion of my quarterly check-in or reset, if you'd like to call it. And this is where we may be looking at the past some. And so this is where I also want to encourage you to meet yourself with grace, with compassion, with encouragement. And again, I'm not looking to open up all the skeletons in the closet. I'm not looking to unearth and dig up everything. But I think it's important when we're just looking at the season that we're in right now. So for example, for me, right now, going into quarter 3, July 1st, I'm kind of just looking at this last month or two. And I'm asking myself the question of, is there anything that I need to honor in this space? And when I say that, I'm talking about, is there anything that maybe didn't go how I wanted it to? Is there anything that was maybe painful for me? Was there a place where I didn't quite show up exactly how I wanted to? And if you go back to my last episode, I talk about that, how I had a mommy meltdown, I called it. And I really had to ask myself, what was I actually upset about there? And so is there a place where we can get kind of nuanced here? But I want to remember that we're talking about now. Is there anything right now that I need to hold some space for and honor that moment? And so I'm not wanting to go way back into history and dig up, childhood trauma and all of those things, but recognizing that at this moment in time at 46, there could be pieces of that could be affecting you. And so holding space for it, honoring it. But again, this is just a check-in. This is kind of a reset, a recalibration. I'm not necessarily digging it up and unearthing all of it, because we might need to put some tools in place before we would do something like that. And so I always want to reinforce here at this moment how important it is for you to have community. So it doesn't have to be anything elaborate. It could be a close friend, a parent, a spouse. It could be a counselor. It could be your pastor. It could be your small group. But a safe place where you have that you can say, when I was doing my quarterly check-in this quarter, this came up for me, and I think I might need some help working through that. I might need some help processing that. So maybe a tool that you do need is to get some counseling, or to sit down with a pastor, or to sit down with a trusted friend that isn't going to commiserate with you, but is going to maybe help give you some encouragement, some hope, maybe some prayer, and help you take a step towards processing that thing in a healthy and safe way. And so, again, putting language to places where we might need to honor something. So, the example that I could give for myself this past month is the end of June. was the time when my husband's dad passed away. And some of you, obviously, our close friends and family, know that there was a season of our life where my in-laws were living with us. My father-in-law had ALS, and my husband and I were his caregivers, but obviously also son and daughter-in-law. We were raising our own children at the same time. And the end of June is, yes, it's summertime and all these wonderful things are happening. But I'm sure for those of you who have lost somebody important to you, you have those dates in your mind of when certain things happened. And so this year in particular, which it's been 3 years since he passed, the day that he passed away, that day was really hard for me this month. And it kind of snuck up on me. I wasn't really expecting it to affect me so much, but it was a moment where, this is a really good example when I'm doing my quarterly check-in and the honor portion. That's something that I need to honor and give some space to. So rather than just stuffing it back down or pushing it under the rug, it's something that I needed to journal about. It's something that I need to kind of just sit with myself and make peace with all of the different things that happened, and recognizing that I might need to talk through some of that with my counselor. I might need to sit with my husband and just talk about what that experience was like for us a little bit. Not to rehash everything, not to dig up everything, but just to recognize that that's an experience that we had in our life. And grief, I'm learning, is not just with my father-in-law, but with other loved ones that have passed. Grief is kind of like, to me, I feel like it's this little bird that sits on your shoulder, and it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's always there. And I just think that it becomes a part of your life. And so this is where I think learning how to honor things, to give space to them, to recognize them, to process them, to give yourself permission to deal with them is really important. But in addition to that, when we're talking about honoring, it's so important to also honor all of the good things that are happening in your life. Are you taking time to stop and smell the roses? Are you taking time to stop and think about what actually went good today? What went really well? What made me smile today? What is something that I'm really grateful for today? Or not just today, this past month or this past quarter, what are some things that went really well? What are some things I'm really proud of? What are some things that, I'm going to hold on to those also? That's the funny thing about life, is that we have both. We have the difficult things, the challenging things, the hard things, the complicated things that we need to hold space for and process and honor and sometimes make peace with. But then we also, on the flip side of that, have the wonderful things, the joyful things that I think equally we hold at the same time, that we have to honor and take note of and recognize. And maybe we don't talk about it with anybody out loud, but maybe, you can write it down and hold on to that. So, again, taking a few minutes, write down things that went well, celebrate. I'm a big fan of celebrate the little things. Maybe the big, huge accomplishment hasn't happened just yet, but maybe on Thursday you got out the door on time. Maybe, you haven't quite gotten the dollar amount in your savings account that you're trying to work so hard for, but you had a full fridge of groceries this week. I just think it's important to celebrate those small victories every step of the way. I've always been a really big fan of that. What brings you joy and what gives you peace, and how can you honor that in your everyday life? Sometimes when it comes to this honor portion, it's helpful to, again, recognize, is there somewhere that I need that help of both celebrating the good things, because sometimes we need our community to help point that out to us and remind us of everything that's going right, of how far we have come, of how strong we actually are, to say out loud the positive things about us, or maybe to even say out loud and encourage us with speaking that life out over us about something they can see that we are praying for or that we're working so hard for. Maybe It's planning in the future to come up with a new tool or a new strategy because you're recognizing a place where maybe something isn't working quite as you want it to. Or maybe planning into your calendar a conversation that you want to have with somebody. So that's the honor portion of this check-in. Lastly is my favorite part, actually, where we get to cast vision. And I think that it is so incredibly easy to forget, to dream, to cast vision, to make space for ideas, to think about what could be or what you want more of or less of in your life right now. And so just when I say that, we're not necessarily talking about like a hardcore goal setting program. Like this isn't 75 hard or whatever that program is. This is just me literally talking about creating time and space where I can sit and think about what do I actually want in this season of my life, in this quarter, in this next quarter. What do I actually want more of? What do I want less of? Or, if you have the time and you want to go that far, what do I want in the next 5 years? What do I want in the next 10 years? What do I want my legacy to be with my kids and my grandkids or whatever the situation is? What do I want people around me to experience of me when I'm done spending time with them? Thinking about what that vision looks like. Again, we're not setting up a hardcore goal system right at the moment. We're just trying to cast some vision, imagine in your mind, close your eyes and picture what does that look like. And if you're like me and you're an old school paper nerd who likes notebooks and journals and paper books and those kinds of things, I literally will, if I have magazines, I will make a vision board, or I'll get on my computer and make clip art of a vision board so that I can look at it every day. What does it look like? I'm talking about that. Close your eyes and picture. What do you want now? What do you want 5 years from now? Go get a piece of paper or get on your Pinterest board or cut out some clip art and just brain dump it all out. It doesn't matter what it looks like. It could be as simple or as audacious as you want it to be. It is just important that you are casting some vision, that you're not just stuck right here in this moment. If you are a Christian like I am, my faith is very important to me. So this is a moment where I will sit down and I will pray and ask God, what is it that you want for me? What is it that you see for me and for my family and for my husband and for my children and for me in my workplace and me in my community? What do you see, Lord? Can you show it to me? And if you ask him, he will reveal those little pieces to you. Proverbs 29:18 says, where there is no vision, the people perish. And we don't want that. We don't want our joy and our spirit to perish. So let's cast some vision for what it could look like and let that hope get in there. Let that hope get in your heart and sink in. And what is your vision for yourself, for your work, for your family, for your community, for your friend group? What are those things? And like I said, we're not setting up the whole action plan right now, but give yourself permission to do that, to dream, to cast some vision. When is the last time that you let yourself do that? I think sometimes we just don't even let ourselves do it because I am just as guilty. I'm so concentrated on what's happening this week and how am I going to pay for groceries and how are we going to get everybody where they need to go, or what's happening with this person, or, the worries and the concerns. And we forget to let ourselves dream and have that vision. So this is the system that I journal about pretty much every quarter. And it just really helps me to reset and kind of refocus for the next couple of months ahead. So compass, where am I at right now? Who am I right now in this moment? Not everything that's happened to me for the past 46 years, but right now at this moment in time, who am I? What am I doing? What are those basic facts? And then honor. What are things that have happened or that are happening right now that I need to honor by giving them some space. Or maybe I need to seek out some tools and strategies so that I can process them, make peace with them, forgive something, someone, or myself, so that I can take a deep breath and move forward even better. And then vision. What is the vision that I'm casting? Is it positive? Am I speaking life over my circumstances and my situations? So again, you can do this quarterly. You could do it yearly. You could do this daily. If you are just having a day where you're feeling super overwhelmed, I have done this before in my car on my lunch break, just closed my eyes and reminded myself, who am I? What am I doing? What is it that feels so hard right now? And maybe that's something that I need to make a note of to honor and go back to later with support, with the right kind of support. And then what is the vision? What am I trying to work towards? And can I take a deep breath and reset, before my lunch break is over or before I go back in the house or whatever it is, before I move forward again? I would love to hear from you. If you listen to this episode and you take some time to go through this process, I would love to hear from you, whether it's in the comments or you can shoot me an email. I will include that in the podcast notes and on my Instagram page. I also have a monthly newsletter called Lighthouse Letters that comes out every month, just with some monthly encouragement, some tips, some favorite recipes, some things that have just helped me out along the way. I would really love to hear from you and see what's your vision. What is your vision? I would love to hear that. So I just want to encourage you today, wherever you are at, whatever season that you are in, you are doing better than you think you are. And let me be an encouragement to you can do it. Whatever it is that you're working towards, I believe in you and you can do it. Take good care of yourself so that you can take care of the life around you and show up well for the life that's around you. And I can't wait to talk to you again next time.